Okay, so we are, this is Adam Zarenko. I'm the Executive Director of the Albany County Land Bank, and we are convening the Albany County Land Bank's Audit Committee in accordance with the New York State's Executive Order 202.1 of March 7th, which allows public agencies like ours that are subject to public meetings law. It suspends Article 7 and allows us to hold these meetings via teleconference. This line is open to the public, and we will record this and transcribe it for posterity in accordance with the executive order. On the call, we have Charles Toohey, the board chair, is also a member of the audit committee. Todd Curley, a board member of the Albany County Land Bank. Samuel Wells, also a member of board directors and on the audit committee. From the land bank staff, we have Amanda Wyckoff, and we're joined by Alan Walther, who is a partner at Bonadeo. And the only agenda item we have is to go through our draft final audit. This audit was completed in accordance with our Public Authorities Accountability Act, PAAA. We're required to do an independent audit of our financials every year. And we're looking to present it to the committee in the hopes to bring it forward to the board meeting this week, so we can then adopt it and meet our reporting requirements and also finish uploading our parish report to the ABO's office. So I think unless anyone on the committee has any other items they'd like to address, we just maybe have ask Alan to dive right into it. Okay, I'm hearing none. Alan, would you mind? I sent the committee members all the draft documents that you sent me, and so they've all been circulated via PDF. So if you want to reference any of them, they could be in front of some folks, but I did get those out last night.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you, Adam. Again, just to introduce myself, I think I've met everybody in the past. My name's Alan Walther. I'm a partner with the Bonadeo Group. We have completed the audit of the land bank for the year ended 2019, and we have issued, we have provided to you draft reports that I believe Adam has disseminated to everyone electronically. The reports will be issued by the end of the week. So that Adam will be able to upload them to the parish system and meet your reporting requirements with the authority budget office. So the overall results of the audit, we'll just talk about briefly, and then we'll jump into some of the details. And as we go through this, just feel free to interrupt me, ask any questions that you may have. So we will be issuing an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. That is the highest level of assurance that we can give on your financial statements. In addition to auditing your financial statements, we also have a responsibility under government auditing standards to issue a report on internal control and on compliance. We did have an internal control finding this year, a material weakness, which you'll find on page 11 of the report. In a nutshell, what that was we found approximately, I think it was 12 properties we found that the land bank had actually received in 2018, but they were not recorded until 2019. So that resulted in a material weakness in internal controls, excuse me, and it also caused a prior period adjustment because those properties should have been recorded in 2018. We've discussed that issue with management. Management has already addressed it and is working on implementing improved control processes to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Our expectation, our responsibility as your auditors is in the 2020 audit, we will follow up on that. And, you know, obviously we can't write our report now without doing the work, but my expectation is that when we look at it next year, we'll find that the controls were properly implemented, and that finding will go away. There were no instances of non-compliance with rules and regulations. We also issue a required communications letter every year, which was one of the draft reports. I'm not going to go through that in detail. If you do look at that, I think the important information there is it discusses significant estimates that are part of the financial statements. The most significant estimates that affect the land bank's financial statements are the estimated value of the donated properties, which we have, our management has recorded those at half of assessed value. We also wrote a management letter this year. The management letter really ties into the inventory findings, and our suggestion with the management letter is really just to coordinate with the outside accounting firm that does the bookkeeping, Bowers and Company, to coordinate with them to develop better procedures to make certain that all of the properties are recorded as they're donated and that inventory is maintained accurately on a perpetual basis. So if you have your draft financial statements, let's take a look at some of the highlights of the reports. If you go to the independent auditors report, which is begins on page 1 of the report, the important information here is the section management's responsibility for the financial statements. The first sentence, which I'll paraphrase, management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements. What we're saying there is that even though we, Bonadillo and a company, assists in the preparation of the financial statements, they're the land bank's financial statements. And our responsibility is in the next section, the auditor's responsibility. Our responsibility is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. The next paragraph, an audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. So what is it that we really do as your auditors? We really do 2 types of audit work. We do substantive tests where we test the balances of financial statement accounts, your cash, your properties held for sale, your deferred revenue, your accounts payable, where we're looking at support for those numbers. And then we also do transaction testing, where we test transactions through your accounting system just to see if your internal controls are functioning properly. And from those 2 types of audit procedures, we develop audit evidence, and from that audit evidence, we form an opinion, and our opinion can be found at the very top of page 2, excuse me, which I'll paraphrase. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the financial position of Albany County Land Bank Corporation as of December 31st, 2019. That is what we as auditors call an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give. That is the type of report that all the users of the financial statements will be looking for. If we go to page 3, is the land bank's statement of net position. The highlights here, your total current assets, $12.4 million, of which $7.2 million is property held for sale. That's the value of the properties that the land bank holds. For resale, you had cash of approximately $3.8 million and grants receivable of approximately $1.4 million. So your total assets were $12,442,000. Your total liabilities and unearned revenue were $2,152,000, of which $859,000 was accounts payable, and $1.3 million approximately was unearned revenue. That's unearned grant revenue. The accounting formula is assets minus liabilities, brings you to your total net position. The land bank's total net position was $10.2 million at the end of the year, which we break out to show that $7.2 million of your net position is not spendable because it's tied up in property held for sale. So you have approximately $3 million of net position available for operations. On page 4 is the land bank's statement of revenue and expenses. The land bank took in approximately $8.2 million of total revenue, which is broken out between sale of properties of approximately $1.8 million, donation of properties for sale, $4.9 million. Those are the properties that the land bank has received predominantly from the County of Albany. You have various sources of grant revenue from the Albany County, $250,000, an $836,000 New York State grant, and a $374,000 New York State grant. You had approximately $105,000 of rental income, and then about $45,000 of other fees. Your operating expenses, the largest one of which was your cost of sales, which is the value of the properties that were sold, $3.3 million. You spent approximately $1 million in property maintenance, $550,000 in salaries and benefits, $386,000 in property tax recoveries. That is the proportion that the land bank owes to the county when the sales price exceeds $30,000. $233,000 of insurance, $200,000 of professional fees, and $84,000 of office and administrative were your largest expense items. You also took in non-operating revenue, $2,600. Your total change in that position for the year was $2,399,000. Added to the net position restated for the prior period adjustment of 7.9 brings you to your end of the year net position of $10,290,000. The next page, page 5, shows your cash flows. The highlights here, your net cash flow from operating activities was a positive $1.3 million. You spent $364,000 on capital and related financing activities. You took in $2,600 in investing activities. So your net change in cash was $947,000. Added to the beginning of the year cash gets you to your end of the year cash of $3,850,000. Pages 8 through pages 8 and 9 are the notes to the financial statements. I'm going to skip over those in their entirety. There are no new notes this year. And then beginning on page 10 is our report on internal control and compliance. If you read through this, the internal control section identifies the material weakness, and then the compliance section identifies that there were no compliance findings. And then on page 12 is our financial statement finding with regard to the reporting of donated property, which I discussed initially when I started the presentation. Any questions on the financial statements?
No.
Okay.
Any other committee members have any other questions about what Alan just presented?
I do not.
Okay.
Adam, this is Sam. Not necessarily a question. Well, I guess it's more of a question for you, though Alan can certainly answer it. But could you just talk more about the deficiency and what exactly occurred there? With how the properties were not properly reported?
Yeah, so we get properties, Alan Audit calls them donations, but they're properties that are tax foreclosed and conveyed to us from Albany County through the legislative process. We acquire those in batches based on their availability and when we're able to acquire them. They're all uploaded into eProperty and our deed files. They are all supposed to be booked at the donation value, which was what Alan referenced, which is that really high number, which was the 100% of the assessed value at the time. It's now 50%. Also into QuickBooks, and then reconciled when basically it's supposed to be reconciled with the QuickBooks. So now what happens, what Alan's audit caught, which we really appreciate, is for 12 properties, they were acquired by the land bank. They were uploaded in our database, our inventory. They were not entered into QuickBooks, largely because they had no property-specific related expenses against them that would require any billing or accounting for QuickBooks. And so they didn't show up on the QuickBooks radar. What we realized when we did some forensics into it, as soon as Alan flagged it, or Bonadio flagged it, his team, is that we could easily catch that by reconciling our inventory. It usually gets reported to Bowers. I think for those 12, it was kind of the alignment of they didn't get reported in the Bowers, they didn't get recorded on the QuickBooks, and they weren't reconciled. So we're going to have a monthly reconciliation with Bowers on all property in, out, and inventory, total inventory every month, really, will be reconciled on a monthly basis, like how we have the monthly financial reconciliation. And I think that in talking to Alan and staff, that should really close that loophole that we accidentally found, frankly, through this audit.
Awesome. That's all I had.
Yeah, good question, though. And then, Alan, did you have any other, like in terms of the financial statements that were sent and the letters, the next steps for the auditing purpose is to finalize these documents draft final, or will these be the draft final that get submitted to the board on Friday?
The only changes, Adam, are, what you and I discussed yesterday, adding a little bit of disclosure with regard to the payments to Albany County, and that's really it. So the number, the finding, none of that will change.
So Alan, if you'll let me just, let me just update the audit committee on what we're talking about. So Alan's referring to the Albany County property tax recoveries line that he referenced on page 4. That's the $386,241 of potential, I guess, liability that we would owe the county from our sales. So the county resolution 15453 for properties conveyed during when that resolution governed the county's disposition of properties requires that for any property over sale over $30,000 of value at the time when we sell it, during that calendar year, we owe the county, it's a formula. It's like half the base tax is extinguished or half the estimated market value at the time of transfer. Long story short, we run those numbers every year with the county budget office, and that is the maximum amount that we would owe for our activity in 2019. The unknown and what Alan needs to, we work on the footnote language is, historically, but who knows this year, Albany County Legislature has the authority to modify that number as they see fit, so they can take some, all, or none. But we wanted to make sure we were presenting the full potential payment to the county. But from an auditing standpoint, right, Alan, you want to make sure you're using the right language because the number could be changing depending on how the county legislature acts this year.
Exactly.
So with that footnote, would the committee be would the committee be able to make a recommendation to move these financial statements forward to the full board meeting on Friday? That's the only change, Alan?
Correct.
Okay, by me.
Do the committee members have any final questions or anything before we ask for a motion to move these to the board on Friday?
No questions here.
All right. Could someone make a motion to move these forward on Friday?
I'll make a motion.
All right. I heard Todd. Can I have a second? Was that Sam?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other items on the agenda. If anyone has any other new business or questions, I'm happy to field those now. Otherwise, we could ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
No further questions here. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, Sam, anyone second?
Second, Todd.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for calling in. Alan, thank you for that thorough analysis. And everyone stay safe. And
Thank you.
we'll talk board members on Friday, some of us later.
Thanks.
Okay? Take care,
right.
guys.
Thank you,
so
Alan.
much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye. Thank you.